Tonight's theme is proximity. Someone too close. Someone who was there before you noticed, and had been watching long enough to know your patterns, your schedule, your face. The third story tonight is the one I want to prepare you for. It isn't violent. It isn't loud. What makes it disturbing is what was found, and how long it had been there without anyone looking. Stay with me. The car on Millbrook Road. I moved to Asheville, North Carolina in late October of 2021. I'd taken a remote job, data analysis for a logistics company, and I wanted somewhere quieter than Charlotte. I found a rental on Millbrook Road. One-story house, detached garage, big yard. The kind of place you imagine when you say you want a fresh start. I noticed the car about 2 weeks in. A silver Nissan Sentra, older, maybe 2009 or 2010, parked about 40 yards up the road. Always on the opposite shoulder, always facing my driveway. I figured it belonged to someone in the neighborhood. People park on streets. That's not a thing. Then I started noticing the times. It was there at 7:14 when I left for my morning run. It was there at 7:52 when I got back. Gone by noon. Back by 8 or 9 at night. Not every day. Maybe 4 days out of 7. Enough that I started writing it down, dates, times, whether I could see anyone in the driver's seat. Most days I couldn't tell. The sun angle was wrong. I called the non-emergency line. The officer who came out ran the plates, told me the car was registered to a man in Weaverville, about 12 miles north. Said there was nothing she could do unless he was on my property or making direct contact. She wasn't dismissive about it. She just told me how the law worked. She suggested I vary my schedule. I did. I started leaving at different times. 6:30 one morning. 9:15 the next. I stopped running the same route. I started parking my car in the garage instead of the driveway. Small adjustments. The kind that make you feel proactive. They don't actually make you feel safe. The car adapted. Not immediately. There were a few days where it wasn't there when I left, and I thought, maybe that was it, maybe the attention had moved on. But then I'd leave at a random time and it would be there. Just sitting. Engine off, as far as I could tell. In early December, I came home from the grocery store and found a folded piece of paper wedged in my front door frame. No envelope. Just folded once, horizontally. I stood on the porch for a while before I touched it. Then I opened it. It said, "I think you know." That was everything. 4 words in blue ballpoint pen. Handwriting that was careful, deliberate, like someone writing slowly so it would be legible. I called the police again. Different officer this time. He took the note. Photographed it, bagged it, wrote everything down. He told me to document any further contact and call immediately if the individual approached me or came onto the property. He mentioned the name on the registration, I won't say it here, and said they'd do a welfare check at the Weaverville address. They went. They said a man matching the description answered the door and was cooperative. He denied knowing me. Denied parking on Millbrook Road. The silver Sentra was gone from his property when they arrived. I stayed with a friend in Black Mountain for 3 weeks after that. When I came back, the car didn't return. Not the same car, anyway. There was a different one. Dark blue. Different make. Parked just slightly farther up the road than the silver one used to be, like whoever was driving it had measured the distance and decided to give themselves a little more margin. I still don't know what he thought I knew. The next story comes from Ohio, And what makes it different from the one you just heard is that the person watching had decided, well in advance, exactly where they wanted to be. She used my Wi-Fi name. I'm a nurse. I work 3 12-hour shifts a week at a hospital outside of Columbus, Ohio, and the rest of the time I'm home. I live alone. Ground floor apartment in a complex called Stonebridge. It's fine, it's safe, good management, 2 parking lot cameras. I say all that because I want you to understand I wasn't careless. I wasn't naive about solo living. It started with my neighbor in Unit 4. She moved in around March of last year. Mid-30s, quiet, worked what seemed like odd hours. We'd exchanged maybe 6 sentences total, the polite neighbor minimum. Her name was Andrea. That's what the mailboxes said. I first got uncomfortable in April. I was sitting on my couch on a Tuesday night, just finished a shift, half watching something on my laptop. I opened my Wi-Fi settings to switch networks and I saw it. A network named Watching You Heal. That was the name. Lowercase, exactly like that. No caps. I sat with it for a minute. It could be a joke, the kind of vaguely edgy network name people use. It could be nothing. I closed the window and didn't think about it again for 3 days. Then I mentioned it to my coworker, just offhand. She asked if I'd looked up what device was broadcasting it. I hadn't. I pulled up my phone's network scanner that night and the signal was strongest, overwhelmingly strongest, from the direction of Unit 4's shared wall. I knocked on Andrea's door the next morning. She answered in maybe 4 seconds. Like she'd been close to the door already. She was pleasant. Smiled. I asked her, casually as I could manage, if she knew anything about the network name. I framed it like a curiosity, said I'd seen it on my phone. She tilted her head, said she didn't know what I meant, said her network was just her last name. She spelled her last name for me. I hadn't asked her to do that. Over the next 2 weeks I started paying attention to the timing. When I came home, her TV would come on within about 4 minutes. Not immediately, for minutes, like she was giving it a beat. When I left for night shifts at 5:45 a.m., I started hearing her deadbolt turn. Her door would open and close. I'd hear footsteps in the corridor behind me. I checked my Nest camera app. I have a small doorbell cam, and she was in the hallway footage 6 times in 1 week. Just in the hallway. Not going anywhere. Standing near the elevator bank, looking at her phone. Timestamps, all within 10 minutes of me entering or leaving. I went to management. Played them the footage. The property manager was careful, but she took it seriously. Said she'd have a conversation with Andrea. Andrea moved out 4 days later. No notice. Just gone. Unit 4 was empty. Management let me see the move-out report. Nothing unusual, they said. No damage. She'd left it clean. But the property manager called me separately, a few days after. She said the maintenance guy, while doing the turn inspection, had found something in Andrea's bedroom closet. On the top shelf, pushed to the back. A printed photograph. Me. Entering my front door. Taken from an angle that only made sense if it had been shot through the peephole of Unit 4. Her door had one of those wide-angle peepholes that faced the corridor. The print was dated. It was from the week before I moved in. She had moved in knowing I was coming. I still don't know how. That story involved a stranger. The last one involves a house, and something that was built into it long before the wrong person decided to use it. What the handyman left behind. My husband and I bought our house in Denton, Texas in the spring of 2020. It was a seller's market, we moved fast, waived inspection like everyone was doing back then. 3-bedroom ranch house, built in 1987. Good bones, needed some cosmetic work. The previous owners had lived there 11 years. About 2 months after we moved in, we hired a handyman to patch drywall and fix a leaking faucet in the second bathroom. He was referred through a neighborhood Facebook group. Mid-50s, drove a white work van, had decent reviews. He came 3 times over 2 weeks. Polite. Professional. Did the work. We had no reason to think about him after that. In November of that year, I started noticing things I couldn't explain. Small things. A lamp in the guest room switched on when I knew I'd turned it off. A window in the master bedroom unlocked when I was certain I'd checked it. I started sleeping lightly. My husband thought I was tired and stressed, we both were, that year. He wasn't dismissive. He just had a rational explanation for everything and I kept almost agreeing with him. Then our dog started behaving strangely in the hallway outside the guest room. She'd stand at the linen closet, a standard bifold door, floor to ceiling, and stare at it. Not barking. Just watching. Her weight would shift forward, then back, the way dogs do when they're deciding something. I'd open the closet, show her the shelves, towels, extra blankets, the usual, and she'd look at me like I'd missed the point entirely. In February, my husband noticed the shelf brackets in that closet were inconsistent. 3 of the 4 walls had the standard bracket hardware. The back wall had different screws, newer heads, different gauge. He touched the back panel and it moved slightly. A 1/4 inch, maybe less. He got a flashlight and his drill. The back panel of that closet was not a wall. It was a sheet of drywall cut to fit the frame and held in with 4 screws. Behind it was a space 18 inches deep, the full height of the closet, running about 6 feet wide. The previous owners must not have known it was there, or they'd sealed it off before listing. Inside was a folding chair. 1 folding chair, facing outward. Toward the closet door. On the floor beside the chair a travel mug, a small battery-powered lantern, and a spiral notebook. The notebook had handwriting in it. Dates going back about 14 years, which meant long before the previous owners bought the house. The entries were short. 2 or 3 lines each. They described things that happened in different rooms. Meals. Conversations. Arguments. What was on television? Some of the entries described a family I didn't recognize at all, must have been an earlier occupant. And then, near the back of the notebook, separated from the earlier entries by about 15 blank pages, was a new section. The first entry in that section was dated 2 days after we closed on the house. My husband's name was spelled correctly. Mine wasn't, close, 1 letter off, like he'd heard it said but never seen it written. We called the police that night. The handyman's name in the Facebook group was a variation of the name that appeared in some of the earlier notebook entries, same first name, surname that could have been abbreviated or changed. We gave everything to the detective. The notebook went into evidence. They interviewed him. He denied it. Said he didn't know what we were talking about. The detective told us, quietly and off record, that the travel mug's interior still smelled like coffee. Recent coffee. Not months old. We moved out within a week. I don't know who's in that house now. I don't know if they found the closet. I don't know if it matters whether they found it. 3 people. 3 different states. 3 different ways someone decided that watching was enough, that proximity, without contact, without explanation, was its own kind of possession. What I keep returning to is the patience it requires. The planning. The willingness to wait in silence while someone else lives their life, unaware, just feet away. That's not impulsive. That's something else entirely. I want to ask you something tonight, and I mean it genuinely. Have you ever been in your own home and felt, without being able to say why, that the space around you had recently been occupied by someone else? Leave that in the comments. I read them. New stories arrive every day. Subscribe if you want them. And tonight, check your closets. Not because something is there, but because now you'll wonder.